it being that.
And it's also like, what? Then you say you make, so athlete X is able to make $50,000 a year through endorsements or whatever. What? So now you just are like, okay, now that'll go towards my degree. No, you still want financial aid.
Yeah, exactly.
Then want spending money.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because financial aid is tied up in how much your parents make, but this would be how much
Right.
you are making. But I don't see it having that large of an impact. Now we'll see. I don't know, but Mike Poeta says they're open for business. Jaden Ironman, he was talking about July 1st for a little bit. He put out a post that he's very excited for the opportunity. He's ready for it. Bo Bartlett, wrestling's favorite editor, photo editor, design, logo guy.
And barber.
Barber?
Is that right?
Yeah.
Bo Barber, huh?
Yeah. Bo knows barbering.
Does he really?
He was.
Do you think he cuts his own hair?
That's tricky.
That's the sign
Maybe.
of a true craftsman.
Yes. That's
Yeah.
a man's man. He was cutting up Aaron Brooks on Instagram
Okay.
last night, though. And, he did a decent job.
This guy's got a lot of skills.
Yeah.
Very diversifying. Okay, so curious for y'all's thoughts on the reaction. Everyone seems really excited about this.
Yeah, you should be. It's long overdue. Like, this is kind of a no-brainer. Athletes, this should have happened a long time ago. It's ridiculous that athletes at one point weren't able to make money off their name, image, and likeness. So.
What do you think the opportunities would have been for you at Nebraska Kearney had this legislation been in place?
I don't think I'd be working here. I'd be making the
Well,
big
then I'm
bucks
glad.
down in Mexico.
Dang.
I had a conversation with Mike Mal about this, and a point that he made that I hadn't thought about a lot was he's like, man, if there was this big desire to pay athletes, it would already be happening with the guys that graduate, with the senior level guys. If there was this like big push to get these endorsement deals for wrestlers, then it would already be happening, and it's not. So that does suggest that at least at this point, there's not this great desire to throw money at wrestlers and get them on their products and whatever. I do think part of that reason, and we've talked about this on here, is that wrestlers' window for their most for their popularity, the time when they have the most eyeballs on them, is during that
Yes.
NCAA part of their career. And so I think there is definitely an opportunity for people who are interested in promoting athletes that are specifically tied to these institutions. I think there's an opportunity for student athletes to make money there. But Mike's point's a good one. It's not like just because it's July 1st and now this policy comes into place, all these companies are going to say, okay, finally we can open these vaults of cash that we've been wanting to spend with these kinds of endorsement deals for a long, long time.
Exactly right. This is somewhat related, not completely, but the Big Ten Network put out the student athletes with the largest followings, and I think some people were a little surprised with the results. If Tyler can pull them up, number one in the entire Big Ten, not just wrestling, all sports, Gable Dan Steveson. The number two, a gymnast named Michael Giroux. Do we know why he's very popular?
I couldn't tell you.
I bet he's good at gymnastics. Number three, Roman Bravo Young.
Yes.
Number four, Tauli Tagovailoa, who is the brother of Tua.
Correct.
And then Michi Johnson, an Ohio State basketball player. You know what is not in the top five? No football.
Tua.
Oh, okay.
Or Tua's brother.
Oh, yeah, Tua's brother. Okay, bad reading.
Number 4, though.
So when you saw this list, did it surprise you guys at all?
A little. I mean, Spencer Lee's 7 too, right? And
Yes.
If you're going down. It did surprise me. I thought, for some reason, I imagined that there would be college football or basketball players with millions of followers and
This is just Instagram.
Right.
yeah. I thought for sure there must be these prominent D1 athletes that have built these massive brands, but it hasn't happened.
I think part of it is wrestling being an individual sport, and a sport where you get to see faces, not like football where you wear a
Helmets.
helmet and pads and you don't really get to see the athletes or whatever. I think that has a small part in it.
I think it has a huge part in it. I think the individual aspect that you get to feel, there's just more of a connection when you watch Gable compete than even when you watch a great running back or quarterback in football.
And you become a fan of Gable,
Right.
not necessarily a fan of Minnesota. I mean, obviously, a lot of Minnesota fans as well, but outsiders can look in and be like, I don't care about Minnesota, but I root for Gable.
And that's absolutely what's happening with Gable. Gable has a national following. And I think there's a couple things that contribute to that. One, wrestling is a sport that kind of converges its eyes on athletes starting in high school, right? So a lot of people knew about Gable coming up, right? And then he had a couple years on the, he's wrestled on the senior level and he's wrestled at Division I. So he's been someone in the wrestling consciousness for a long time. Whereas a Penn State or an Iowa football fan, they probably don't really become fully aware of their guys until they get on campus and then they start playing well, right? Whereas everyone knew about Gable. It was a big deal when he committed. So it's interesting because we would say, well, wrestling's not, a mainstream sport, et cetera, et cetera. But I think it makes a lot of sense. And I'll also say this, it's not just you got to give Gable credit here. And a lot of people wondering, how does he have so many more followers than second place? Has he have more followers than Spencer Lee? And I think a lot of it's effort, right? Gable has made a point to make social media. He understands the opportunity. It's not pure vanity, right? He understands that if he's more
Built himself
prominent
as a
here,
brand.
then that's going to have huge benefit for him down the line. So I think he's recognized that. And I kind of alluded to this yesterday with Spencer and comparing Spencer and Roman, Spencer and Gable. Is like those guys are just more drawn to that kind of thing than where Spencer, I think, would just assume wrestle and do that that aspect of it. Gable looks at it a little more comprehensively, I would say. And even still, I mean, Spencer's 7th in the entire conference, which I think it's cool that wrestling's 3 in the top 10. I think that's his.
Wrestling is also the Big Ten's or the conference wrestling is best at. So I think that helps too. Like, go look at it. Probably wouldn't be the same for the Big 12 or Pac-12.
Yeah, I just think it's when you think about these football stadiums and the Big House in Michigan and Happy Valley and it's Ohio State, the shoe. It's crazy to think that guys that aren't in that sport are more popular than guys who play that sport. Even so, I think it's interesting now. Obviously, the arc, someone like Justin Fields after he gets drafted or he's like on the Heisman, then it hits a different strata.
To the point about athletes being willing to do the self-promotion and think about it that way. I remember at Beat the Streets, Gable, you could just tell that he was not just thinking about that wrestling match and winning the match, but also he wanted to do small things to help promotion. I remember after the match, we did an interview and he's like, hey, can we get a photographer to like get a picture of me on the mat? Like, he had these custom shoes and they were cool. He's like, hey, can we get a picture, somebody to take a good picture of that? And he wanted that for an Instagram post. And he knew that would be different than handing somebody his iPhone and like little things like that, that it took him probably like 5 extra minutes, but it was just an extra step, a little indication that like, yeah, he's already training himself to think about promotion in that way. And then later that night, he had a post with Dylan Dennis. He just like hit up Dylan Dennis to like talk to him and meet up with him for a little bit of time. And then, because he was in the area, he's like, all right, this guy's got a bunch of followers. Let me get a photo with him, knowing that that's going to probably build his brand. I don't think he's super close with Dylan Dennis. I don't think they're buddies and hang out all the time. But he knew, hey, this guy's around and we can probably connect, and that's another small opportunity.
Yes, indeed. Other news, David Carr won the Iowa State Male Athlete of the Year, so congrats to him.
So it's just raking him up.
Win a natty, it goes a long way. And, well-deserved there for David Carr. So wanted to get into not a new segment, nothing we haven't done before, but just looking at the class of 2021 big board, who should go, who should redshirt. JD, why don't you cue this topic up a little bit for us.
Yeah, it's just fun to look at who are the guys we could see go right away, and how they transition. Last year was kind of special in that it was a free year, so it was like, no, wrestle everybody, why not? But this year's kind of back to normal. It'll be a little interesting, so, I figure we just start at number 1, work our way down.
Let's do it.
Number 1, Richard Figueroa. He's going to Arizona State. I don't think we'll see him as they have the returning national finalist at 120.
So I think that there's it's like a two-pronged thing. It's like, one, are they ready to go? Let's pretend he's not at Arizona State. How do we think? Let's assess his readiness. So, like, it's the question of, should they use him? Should Arizona State use him? I think we would say no.
Yes.
Is he ready to go
he?
right away?
I think he is.
I think he's ready.
I think he's national qualifier All-American contention level right away.
I agree. National qualifier for sure. I am curious about what does he look like in a 7-minute grind? Is he? For me, the big question is top. I think he's a really good top wrestler, and I think if that's something that he's able to convert over to the next level, it's not just something where he's able to ride the high school guys, but he's really truly that guy on top. I think that answers a lot of the questions for me. But if it's not, if it's something where maybe it's not going to translate necessarily, then I'm like, well, maybe he might need a year to get fully acclimated, because if you're, just like we've seen, some of these guys that are really good on their feet, it's a hard way to live 7 minutes on your feet if you're not like he's not a true grind you out type of wrestler. He's
Right.
like really slick. He's very dynamic. He has a lot of different attacks, right? But can he maintain that for 7 minutes? I think
he can.
he
doesn't really have gas tank issues.
Well, I mean, he looked pretty tired against Drake Ayala.
Well, most do. It's Drake Ayala.
Well, that's 6 minutes, and it's freestyle.
Well, he still won.
I know. He's also lost to Drake as well, and I don't know in a folk style match.
That is true.
So
That one went longer than 6 minutes.
It did.
I thought he looked fine in overtime. Drake took him down, but
right.
There was the whole singlet shirt pull thing, which I don't think affected. I think Drake got the takedown, but it wasn't like he got taken down because he was tired.
Yeah, I just think another consideration. It's not. Can he come in and wrestle with these guys? It's also, what do we trade off? Right. The constant debate is like, okay, if we use him this year, we kind of lose Richard Figueroa year 5. Right. I really want to see Richard Figueroa year 5. Right. So I think that with for him, I would like to see him get a year in the room, rolling with Brandon Courtney, rolling with Mikhail McGee, and then unleash him the next year and see where you're at.
I think that this is one of the guys where name, image, likeness really, if it becomes an integral part of why these guys' decisions about going right away or not, he's the kind of wrestler that I could see really having conversations with the coaches about, let me go year 1, redshirt year 2 or 3, to get in the lineup, to have some prominent screen time, make sure people know my name, because he gets it too. Like, you see the way that he is on social media. He understands promotion. He understands the value. And so he's a guy that I could see for that reason really wanting to go right away potentially. Of course, if the Brandon Courtney situation were different. I think when it comes to his preparedness, and kind of the point you guys were making about his match with Drake Ayala, and you think about the Unger match too, comparing Richie in freestyle and folk style, he's excellent in both. But in folk style, he's going to be in a lot more matches that are in the balance and that are going to come down to 1 or 2 positions. And that's where I see him as 100% national qualifier. If he's rounded 12, that makes a ton of sense, and it's a coin flip. That's kind of how I see him.
Yeah, I'm with you there with Richie, but his potential, if he gets fully optimized, there's a reason he's the number 1 kid in this class, for sure. Okay, next man up, who would it be?
Alex Facundo.
Oh boy, this is a tough one. This is a tough one for me. Okay, so on the one hand, he's gonna be the best guy he's gonna be the best 165 for Penn State. We feel right.
I think he's probably gonna be their guy.
Okay, I agree. I agree with that as well. I think he will be the guy, and I think similarly he is ready. He's ready to go. He's ready to qualify, win matches at nationals. What I am curious about is where's his mat game at. Because I view him as a takedown guy, an elite neutral wrestler, a guy that's tough to take down, a guy that's got a few different ways to get to his attacks. I don't know if he has enough ways to score to be a. I don't see top 5 next year for Facundo.
65 is tough too.
Well, yes, it's tough, no doubt. Now, the thing is, if Griffith's up, which we think he will be, if Mackay's up, which we think he will be,
It's true.
it thins
opens
out
up.
a little.
Yeah.
That thins it out. You'll still have Bull. You'll still have Wenzel, Keegan. Travis Whitlake. So I feel like I would be, if we went down the list, here's some guys I would be stunned if Alex Facundo could beat. I'd be stunned if he could beat Alex Marinelli. I'd be stunned if he could beat Jake Wenzel, just because that mat strength, I think that is something that will be tough for him. Now, Keegan O'Toole is interesting. But I think after the year we just saw Keegan have, it's tough to see that for him. So I'll say he's ready to go. I think he should go, and I think he's got All-American potential.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree too. I mean, you just, the development those guys make at Penn State and the success that they often have in year one gives me a lot of confidence that he's gonna do really, really well. But the question of how high, I don't know. But I do think he's ready, and I do think he will go.
Kale's kind of like he always knows best. You know, we saw it pulling Mark Hall. It very rarely, I feel like, goes poorly when a true freshman at Penn State goes.
Yeah, what? Here's the true freshman that I wrestled, that just off the top of my head. Nico was finalist. Zane beat Logan that year, was 5th. Mark won.
Now, Robbie went this year.
Yeah,
And Bo Bartlett, but this was a weird year. This
Exactly,
didn't
like I
count.
said at the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah. So this was a year that you almost have to throw it out.
yeah. What are the other? I'm sure I'm missing some other true freshmen, but like Ed David did not. Jason Nolf, Bo Nickel did not. Red shirt. Yeah. Anyway, when he picks, he's normally, they're ready to go. So it'll be exciting to see which direction he goes. I'm curious, long term weight wise, do we see Facundo career 65? Do we see him
I
run
don't
out?
think so. I think he'll end up.
Here's my counterpoint to that.
74.
This guy was like a 52-60 as a freshman.
That's true.
The dude's been big. It's not like he's been like a 26 and a 32, and it's like he came out the gate and was like Super 32 finalist or whatever.
And maybe that's why I'm saying that, because like
you're so used to that progression.
Like every year, like I'm like, okay, he's gonna go up. Like he's not gonna hold this. He'll be up at this weight. He'll be a 74 in college. But yeah, maybe right. Maybe he has just plateaued.
And also, can just consider where he's at. He's at Penn State, and they're gonna have. I mean, are Starachi and Brooks Dean gonna bump up, or how would that work? Like, where else is he going to wrestle? Like, I don't see Starachi. Now, I could see Brooks going up to 97 at some point in his career, but yeah, I don't know. But the one thing that's good with Facundo is if there is a need for him to move up, I think he's got the frame to do it effectively. But I think for Penn State, him being a 65 solution is important for them, right? Because I don't know if he's not their plan at 65 for the next couple of years. I'm not sure what they're gonna do, because I think it seems really unlikely that Joe Lee's gonna be a solution there, and I don't know who they have waiting in the wings in the 57 range, but it doesn't seem to be anyone that's Facundo's level.
I agree.
Tight.
All right.
Next man up.
Number 3, Patty Gallagher.
Okay. I love this guy. I think there's a lot of reasons for him to go right away. One, I think you just need that injection of what Patty's going to bring. Hard nose, tough wrestling, a lot of offense. I think Ohio State could just use that kind of an energy to build off of what Sammy did last year, build off of what Carson Karchler is likely going to do. I think he's a 57 now. I don't know if he's a long-term 57. And I think Carson Karchler might be a
Patty does love to lift.
Patty love lifty, as they say. And so when you consider that, now I know we've had correspondence, and I think the plan right now is to redshirt him, but I would wrestle him, and I think he is ready. I love that I know he can hand fight well enough on the D1 level. I know he can endure the physicality, and I think he's someone where if he's going right away by March, he's going to be pretty fantastic. And 157 is an interesting weight because we don't think Deacon's back. Hidley moved up 2 weight classes. Della Vecchia is gone.
Yep.
So it's not, it's not like he's dropping into 174, which is just going to be, a guy could wrestle out of his mind and not place there, right? Mm-hmm. So 157, and also, what's the alternative for Ohio State if he doesn't go?
I mean, hasn't there been some talk about Sasso moving up potentially?
Yeah, but I don't think that's happening.
Yeah.
One other 157 wrinkle. We need to get this in our brains. Austin O'Connor going up.
Yes.
So he's also Carr versus David Carr. That's a sassy NCAA final if it happens.
So, yeah, I mean, you look at the rankings as they finish the season, and it's Carr, Della Vecchia, Deacon, Teamer, Hidley. Out of the top 5, only 2 guys left. And then you go down to Brayton Lee, Brady Berge, Caleb Young, Kendall Coleman, Will Luan, the next 5. And those guys, it feels like some of those matches are winnable for Patty. Absolutely.
Yes. I feel the exact same way. I think you let him run. If he's ready, if he's feeling good and he's healthy, that's the thing. That's a big thing. If you're healthy now, you should go.
And I think there's something to be said, too, about being a hometown kid, taking pride in wearing the Ohio State singlet. Like, he's a St. Ed's kid. He grew up just down the road from Columbus. He's basically home. It's not like he needs to take time to get acclimated. He knows what he was getting into, and a guy that wants to go right away and wants to represent.
You think he wants to go right away?
I haven't talked to him about it, but I know he was definitely a guy who's like, no, from the beginning, like, Ohio State's my school. I want to go here. Like, I want to represent Ohio State.
Yeah. I would love it if he went right away. I think it'd be exciting. I think it's the right move. I don't know if they'll do it, but I think it's the right move. But no one would ever let me coach their team in college, so what do I know? But I'd use him. Okay.
Back to Penn State.
This is fun.
Number 4, Shane Van Ness.
Okay, this is interesting for me because if you asked me 4 months ago, I'd be like, yes, let him go right away. Let him go at 49. And now, I feel like he could benefit from a year potentially. I'm wondering, the guy broke his leg, right? And
yeah.
You don't just come back and then you're top level self again right away. And some of the dual stuff was it surprised me, frankly. There's so much to work with there. To me, if I'm ranking this class, if there's just a draft and I have the first pick, I think I would take him. I really would. And maybe that's not
for the ceiling.
I think it's just the combination of the pay. I love that. It's pretty rare you get a guy an unreal athlete with great technical skills combined with a ridiculous pace. Normally there's some sort of trade-off there. Normally the trade-off, if you got a pace hard-nosed guy, they're not maybe the most athletic, kind of like they're more of a grinder type, and vice versa, right? If you're more slick, you don't have that. I feel like he's the combination of both. I think he's like an eye of the tiger kind of kid. I think he's absolutely special, and if you were selling off of his results in these off season whatever matches, I will buy all your Shane Van Ness stock. So my question, if he's a 41, which I thought he'd be a little bigger at this point, but he's still making 138. I don't know if that's a good cut for him or a brutal one. I figured he'd be more of a full-size type of 49. If he is that, they should wrestle him right away because I think he's going to be their best guy. I think the plan is to redshirt Bo Bartlett at 141 while Nick Lee finishes out 141 and graduates. I think that's the plan. I don't know. But if that's the plan, I would wrestle him right away at 149. I'm sure he's at Penn State now. I'm sure he's training. He's going to think of where he can be by March. I would wrestle him. And if Penn State's if they want to get in this Iowa conversation, they've got to do some things like this, right? And I think there's going to be may be more competition at Penn State 149. There's a lot of excitement about a couple of the more under the radar guys, but I would wrestle Shane Van Ness right away at 149 if he's that size.
That's to me the biggest question with Shane Van Ness because I was super surprised when I saw he went back down to 38. In March, he beat Josh Saunders, and it seemed like, okay, this at 65 kilos, it's like, all right, he's going to be at least moving up to 45 high school weight-wise. There's not a huge reason for him to go back down, but then he dropped to 63 kilos for the Ultimate Club Duels. That's where he took losses to Lamer and Alanis. Those are two excellent, excellent guys. But those are the kinds of matches he's going to need to be winning to make a big impact in the Penn State lineup. But that question of being at 63 kilos, and then for preps, he went 38, like you said, that to me begs the question of how big is this guy and why is he that big? And is he cutting a lot of weight? I don't know. Did he, have some muscle atrophy from having a broken leg for all those months? Maybe. But I do think that we're going to see another surge with him when he gets back into the full swing of training and competing with the kinds of people that he's going to be training with at Penn State. But if he's not 45 pounder in high school this year, I don't know that he's going to be a 49 next year. I hope he is because, like you, I do want to see him, and I think he's going to catch a lot of people. He's going to catch up quickly. You lose a lot from a year where not only are you not competing, but with a broken leg, you're not even able to train, get your timing right, all those important things. So I agree. This guy's going to do really, really well, and the size is the biggest question. Everybody thought this guy was going to just keep growing and growing and maybe be a 57 eventually. Now, we'll see.
Well, how do you feel about him going 41, Lee up to 49, redshirt Bartlett?
Well, I wouldn't understand that. I would say why redshirt Bo? I'd wrestle Bo redshirt Shane if Nick bumps up. Personally,
41. My gut reaction is 41 is probably a tougher weight, in terms of the composition of the weight class. But then as I'm looking at the rankings, number 3 at the end of the year was Tariq Wilson. He's going up. Number 4, Sebastian Rivera. There's a chance he goes down. And then number 5, it goes to Dylan Duncan, Dresden Simon, Chad Redd, Zach Sherman. That's your top 8. And if he is making 41, if that's the size he is, I kind of like that weight class for him as a place he could do some damage.
Yeah. Okay, Shane Van Ness. Next man up.
Drake Ayala, number 5, going to Iowa.
So obviously, I think he will not start. I think he's a 25, right?
Yep. At least for the first couple of years, I think. I don't think he's probably not a career 25 guy.
We'll see. I would, I think he is ready. But obviously, you redshirt him because you have Spencer Lee. I like that. I think he's a good combination of. I think he's got the D1 grit, the D1 grind. He's got the work ethic. I like his offense. I think he's well-rounded. I think he could go right away. I think a similar prognostication for him as Richie, right? I think Win would definitely qualify for nationals. There's no doubt in my mind. He would win some matches in nationals, but Is he ready to? You think about a guy like a Malik. How does that match go right away? How does that match go for him? I think those kind of matches where I feel like, all right, that's probably a close match in year one for him. Maybe he beats him, maybe not. So I think he's a fringe All-American as a true freshman. I think a year in the room, he's going to get a lot better, and he's going to get better quick, right? He's in an environment and a place that just routinely produces elite 25s and 33s. So I think he's going to be really good. I think eventually he's someone that will contend for national titles. But I'm excited that he's going to get a year to. As much as I'd like to watch him year one, I'm excited that he will likely get a year to mature. Now, what will get interesting is if Spencer, as through his comeback process, and you know Spencer's on the mat now, right? As he gets through that, and if he's feeling like, all right, I'm not fully Spencer, they're not going to wrestle him, right? But I think the plan absolutely is to wrestle Spencer right now. But if he's not him, they won't wrestle him. So who will it be? That's a question to me, right? Would it be Drake? Would they roll out a true freshman, which is something Tom Brands has done once? Spencer?
Free the Lee.
When they freed the Lee. So with that, you know, would they go with Drake? Is he going to be the best guy? Because they've got, you know, Jesse Barr is there. Is he still someone that can make 25?
He can make 25.
I don't think
anymore.
so either. Aaron Cashman, someone who's done spot duty. I don't think he's on Drake's level personally. No. I haven't seen that progression there for Aaron. So I think he would be the best guy in the room if Spencer didn't wrestle. And so you combine that with the fact that this is Iowa's window right now, and they'll say that their window will be beyond this year, but they are in prime position to win, guaranteed this year. They are in a great position, and Spencer's about 27 points, and you need to start making that up if he's not going to wrestle. So I think you would potentially see Drake. I think it would be the wisest choice if you're trying to win nationals this year and you want your best team out there. I think that team has to involve Drake Ayala if Spencer doesn't wrestle.
And Iowa doesn't punt.
They don't punt.
Which, not that they would be a punt year, because
yeah, they're gonna be
bringing
nasty.
back everybody. But
yeah. You know, one of the last times I can think about them not wrestling, their best guy at a lineup was Marinelli the year he did not wrestle at 65. I think he was pretty obviously their best dude. St. John won the wrestle off one year, but they did not start him. So it's been a few instances where I don't think they wrestled their best guy, but pretty few and far between, I would say. But they often redshirt their guys.
Yeah, and Drake's a guy, a lot of times the worry is for incoming freshmen, mat wrestling. And he is not, although he's I would say, kind of a neutral guy or whatever, you know, he's not scoring too many turns or whatever, but he's not a guy you have to worry about on bottom. That was the big story going into the Who's Number One match with Richie.
That's what I said.
Richie? Yeah, Richie was on. You were telling him he shouldn't even take bottom.
He shouldn't have. I really
but
thought
he
that.
did, and he got out.
I was like, this is just, why would you do that? Why would you go? And he got away right away.
Mm-hmm. So.
Then he later got turned by, was it Ryder Block? Was that the kid's name?
Yes, that beat him. But then he avenged in the state finals.
Big avenge.
He's just, man, the guy is just, he has that competitive desire too that you don't always see. You know, you look at high school wrestlers and kind of ask like, how often do they compete and what kinds of places do they compete and why? And I mean, Drake, not only was he super excited to wrestle Richie at Who's Number One, but then was one of the few guys from Who's Number One that wrestled at Super 32 in a really tough field, looked really good. And he just keeps wrestling. I mean, he wrestled at junior duels a couple weeks ago for Team Iowa, despite the fact that for a lot of guys that are seniors, they're ready to move on, get in the college room and do that. But he just loves to compete, and I think that goes a long way for these guys as they're getting acclimated.
Evidently. All righty. How far down the list do we want to go? We just did the top 5.
Gonna go through 10?
Sure.
Okay.
Number 6.
Number 6, Dean DJ Hamidi, going to Wisconsin.
Really like this kid. He fits weight-wise for Wisconsin right away, right? There shouldn't be... We see him as a 57?
I think maybe 65.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah,
What
I
do you
think
say,
so.
David?
I think 65. He wrestled 74 kilos at junior nationals, and then when he wrestled at the Spartan duels, he was up at 170. I think he's probably a 65 pounder. He's got a frame to build on, and I think 65 probably makes sense for him.
Well, with Wick gone, seems like the vacancy's there. Well, either weight, I would wrestle him right away. You're gonna have Braxton in the lineup. I'm guessing, right? Braxton technically could redshirt because
Yes.
he was not enrolled last year. But you gotta figure they're gonna wrestle him, right?
That's another thing. Use him when you got him.
Seriously.
He's ready.
He's definitely ready.
Yeah.
So I say, hey, roll out these young guys. They're gonna be solid in quite a few spots. I like, man, Hamidi's arc is insane, and going to Wisconsin, gonna get to roll with Reeder all the time. It's a tough room. I think it's a good fit for him, and I'd let him go.
He was one of the most dominant performers at Super 32. When he won that title, I don't know. I think a lot of people believed that 160 bracket was going to be kind of up in the air, and let's see. He was certainly a favorite to do well and had a good chance of winning. A lot of people would have picked him, but nobody saw that level of dominance coming. And then he finished, followed that up with an Elite Eight performance where he beat Kyle Valencia soundly. I don't know how soundly it was actually, if I remember correctly, but really impressive win there. And at times he's just looked almost unstoppable. Then super close match with Facundo
Right.
at junior nationals, and then on the backside he took another loss. So I don't know. He's somebody that on some days he looks unstoppable, 100% ready to go. Other days it looks like he could use a little bit of seasoning, but in a coin flip situation like that, I mean, it seems valuable to roll him out at some open tournaments, see how he's doing, and then but with the intention that you're probably going to pull him if you get the chance.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where he's at. He's a guy you test the waters a bit with first.
Couple opens.
Yeah, get him some college wins, get the confidence rolling, get the momentum going, and then that's when you'll really see him excel and take off.
Maybe it's somebody you frame like the Midlands or something. You're like, hey, we're going to Midlands, and what you're going to do is prove whether or not you're ready to go.
Yeah.
And I kind of think he'd be a guy who would say, man, I want to go. Like I'm gonna wrestle as hard as I freaking can to get in this lineup. He seems like he has that kind of an edge to him.
He's a guy you say that to light a fire under, knowing no matter what that you're going to start him at 65.
Yeah.
Because they need a 65.
Yeah, they will. They will. Okay, that's DJ Hamidi. Next up,
Chance Lamer.
talk a little bit
Organs.
about Chance, David, because he's been a real fun guy to watch the last little bit, and a guy who's really climbed the big board tremendously.
Yeah. Beginning of the year for him, Super 32, made the finals, looked good doing it, and then lost to Bouzakis, who doesn't do that, right? Everybody loses to Bouzakis, but he looked like Bouzakis was kind of a level ahead. So that's how it felt like, okay, good high school kid, good future, but he made massive jumps. He was 7th at junior nationals. His losses there were Jesse Mendez and Eric Barnett, so nothing bad. But then since that time, he's just looked really, really outstanding. At PWC, he was very dominant over Chappell. And then at the Ultimate Club Duels, that's where he separated himself. He beat Shane Van Ness there, looked excellent, and then was 2nd at junior nationals, only losing to Bo Bartlett. And looking really good against Bo Bartlett as well. He looks like a guy that's D1 ready to me.
Yeah, I'm curious with Michigan. Is he? How's the fit work? Year one, right?
So I think he's probably a 41, maybe 33. possibly year one, but probably 41 long term. And, you know, I don't know if you get much more production out of him than Drew Madden, who
Is good.
they had last season. Not enough more production in any way to take him out of a red shirt.
Right. The thing for me is he's got to be on market improvement over Drew, which I would be surprised if he's like just. I mean, Madden is a tough guy. He's beaten some good dudes. He's been in the ringer. So to me, I think to wrestle Chance right away, he would need to be grown. He needs to be bigger. He just made like 132 or so. So that to me does not scream 141. But if he got to growing and he was a 41, I think that's more of a weight of need for Michigan. So if he got bigger, and one thing that makes me sort of lean towards, well, maybe you use him, it's two things. One, Michigan's team this year, if they bring back some of their seniors like Miles and Massa, which is still not determined, if those guys come back and then you can get a little extra boost at 141, maybe you go for that, right? Also, the other reason is with his arc being like this, you can really accelerate that. And how much better is he going to get from now to March?
Yeah, I kind of, I go back and forth. I'm looking at, well, for one, I think 33, it doesn't make as much sense. They've got Ragusin and maybe Micic, who knows? Nobody knows. But
Yeah.
but
Seems unlikely.
Seems unlikely. They have good options at 33. 41, at first when I saw Matten, I'm like, well, he was an NCAA qualifier this year. But then looking back at his career, Matten is 2 times round of 16 at NCAAs. He's qualified all 3 years that he's been in the lineup, and he's got 1 year left. It's a guy that, you look at the matches he's been in. He's had close matches with Chad Redd, and you kind of think like, all right, we've got a guy that we know where he is. He's going to be solid, and on a great day, maybe he gets on the podium, sneaks on the podium. The upside with Lamer is higher, though. Lamer, during the course of his career, I think he's going to rise past that level, and it's the question of will that be now or not. And to me, he's somebody similar to Hamidi. Roll him out at, put him in the Michigan State Open, see how he does there. Maybe send him to Midland, see how he does there, and be open to the possibility that this guy is your starter at the end of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you think about Ragusin and what a revelation he was from, he made the senior national finals, and he, had a couple other really strong performances, and he looked good at 25. So, he could be a guy that has that kind of ascent once he gets to Ann Arbor. We'll see. I'm leaning towards redshirting Lamer right now.
You know what's funny? Once you said Ragusin, I'm leaning more towards redshirting him too, because Ragusin is an example of like a freshman can show you a glimpse and have an outstanding moment and break out in a really big way, but that is not necessarily the same thing as being able to put it together at the end.
Zane can beat Logan Stieber, but he might end up getting 5th at nationals.
Well,
Which
it's a
little different. I know.
They needed Zane that year.
Yeah.
I don't know if they. Yeah, 2014 they wouldn't have won without Zane.
I know. I was just speaking of, showing a glimpse of what a wrestler can be.
Maintaining it for sure. Okay, next man up. Who we got?
Kyle Valencia.
Okay. I feel very strongly they should redshirt Kyle.
Yes,
I think he's
agree.
got fantastic physical tools. I think he's got a lot going for him. And I think just a year of refining and polishing, I'm excited to see what Kyle can do after that year. I think it would work. I think it makes sense on both levels. I think it makes sense for the lineup with his brother coming back. And I think it makes sense just for his own personal development. I like Kyle a lot as a wrestler, and I think a year in that room he will really benefit from that.
Kyle is a quantity guy. Shoots a lot, not always the best shots, which I feel like is a bad recipe for college wrestling.
Yeah.
I think he would probably get down block, go behind, sprawled on quite a bit. But like you said, that's a style. If you're a college coach, you go, okay, we can take this and mold it into something good. pick your spots a little better, clean up the technique. But it's still a gunslinger guy at heart.
Yeah. Well, and another thing is like how if you're a volume shooter, you're gonna give up go behinds. Okay, and how are you underneath?
Yeah.
Are you like Anthony, where if you get taken down, it's not automatic you're getting away, right? And and that's true for most freshmen, right? So a volume attacker like that's not maybe automatic escape, that could be a really tough recipe, because then you're like, okay, then you've got this guy who's just so offensive minded, who's like, well, if I shoot now, I'm gonna. So you really can't be your full self. So I think in a year, I'm really excited to see what he can do.
I agree, and that in a year, give him a year. He used even his senior year in high school as I think an exercise in learning, growing, figuring things out. He wrestled anywhere from 160 to 182 this year, and took losses at all those weights. Like he's just, when I say took losses, it's like he wrestles a lot. He shows up at events, I think sometimes on relatively short notice, and he's trying to figure out what he can learn from and grow from, and that's a guy that I don't know, that mentality of, it feels like a growth mindset type of situation. Like, I want to get in here, I want to see what I can figure out about myself, and if I lose, I lose. That's good. But I think at the D1 level, if you're doing that learning at open tournaments or things like that, it's a little easier to come back and come into the room and say, all right, now let's figure out what we're doing. If you're doing that in the varsity lineup, doing dual meets, with a lot of eyes on you, it can be a little more discouraging. So I think let him grow, let him consider the year to be a growth year. Because if you're competing in the varsity lineup, as much as you want to grow, as much as like that's got to be a big part of your mindset, I think it can be hard to grow when there's also pressure on you from fans and from coaches. And you think about the messaging from coach to athlete or from coach to team after a dual meet, it's intense. After an open tournament, it's a little more maybe constructive. It's a little more like, all right, here's what we learned, and now let's move from here. So I think that year where everybody knows, everybody's on the same page, your goal is learn as much as you can, get as good as you can. I think that is exactly what he needs.
Awesome. All right, next man up.
Joel Vanderveer.
Going to Northwestern. 138-pounder, but he looks really big. I think he's a...
We haven't seen him wrestle in a year,
Since he was
so...
number one, yeah.
He has not wrestled since he was number one.
He's just been bodybuilding since then.
I was about to say, so what does he weigh?
Yeah.
He could be a 57 for all we know, and I don't think that's the case. I think he's probably a 49 in college, but it's hard to say. I can't say for sure when a guy hasn't competed and you're a high school kid.
Interesting. So I like Joel. I think if you haven't been in the streets wrestling a lot, it's tough to, all right, coming now, you're wrestling in the Big Ten, and it's not a shortened season. It's a full season. And if he's a 49, they've got one, and he's really good. His name's Yaya Thomas. So
He just placed third.
I think I think the red shirt makes sense on multiple fronts. I think it makes sense lineup wise, and I think it makes sense just for Joel's development. I think upside is really, really impressive. But we'll see. I still think he could use a year of development and training there in Northwestern.
Now, I think his style will translate pretty well to the college level. Not really a deficiency, good at riding legs, on top, tough from neutral, stingy, hard to score on. So I think his style does translate well to the college level.
I do too. I like him a lot.
Now, scenario,
hit me.
He has been bodybuilding a lot. He's put on a lot of weight. Who do they have? Ryan Deacon doesn't come back. Who do they have behind Ryan Deacon?
Max Mayfield is the next man up.
Okay.
Right now, Mayfield 3-5 last year. So let's see, best wins probably Ryan Thomas, Caleb Licking, but he's not a guy that you would think about as a huge impact guy.
because I think we still don't know if Deacon's coming back or not.
I feel like he's not.
Yeah.
See, I mean, if I had to put a
From what I've heard, he's been traveling around training at different places, possibly, looking for like an RTC,
okay,
to go to. So who knows? Maybe they do need a 57. Maybe Joel's put on a bunch of weight.
yeah, okay. Last man up. Close out this top 10.
It is Alejandro Herrera Rondon from Pennsylvania to Oklahoma.
Give me your thoughts. I think lineup wise, it doesn't make sense with Justin Thomas back, but
yeah,
it's a
I agree.
57.
And similar to his style, similar to Vanderveer's, that I think does translate well. He was a guy I had maybe some questions about 2 years ago, but has really come on strong this past year, and kind of taken those question marks away from me. And I do think he will be very good in college. Good on top, good at riding legs, good in scrambles, and stingy, hard to score on, kind of like I was saying for Vanderveer. He's a guy who I think maybe could go right away. And beyond that, national qualifier, win a couple matches, possibly All-American level.
I think if you're asking a question of like who wins between Justin Thomas and Alejandro Herrera Rondon head to head, man, I'm sure right now it's Justin Thomas, but by the start or middle of the season, I think it's going to be a coin toss. I think those guys are very, very similar. I think probably he doesn't start because they have Justin.
It's another scenario where you're not going to get enough more production out of this freshman that you waste a year or whatever, pull their red shirt.
He has such folk style specific tools. He's going to be really good. Like you said, JD, the scrambling ability, the mat wrestling is incredible. And the other thing that we know about him a little bit more than a lot of high school kids is we know that he can endure a season where you're going to see a lot of tough guys. A lot of times for guys, the high school season is like, outside of a couple of matches, it's pretty much a cakewalk. I think he wrestled Rocco Welsh 4 times this year. He also had Paniro Johnson
and
in his
he beat
weight.
him every time. That's impressive because it's hard to beat a guy that good that many times in a row.
Yes. That's exactly right. That's kind of the thing for me that stands out. And he's hungry. After all that, he was like, I can't wait. I remember interviewing him after PIAAs. He's like, I can't wait to wrestle Voinovich at PWC. Like, I really.
And then
want
he
that
went and
match.
wrestled Virginia Beach.
Yeah.
After that too.
Yeah, and I mean, he beat Voinovich. He beat, who is good at the same things that he's good at, and he just kind of proved that in that match at least he was able to hang with him and not only but surpass him. I think if they had a need, he would be very serviceable right away. I don't think he'll go because of Justin Thomas, but he could if he needed to.
All right, fun segment. Let's get to some questions from our dear friends. First question. What are potential unintended consequences on the NIL, positive or negative? For example, unattached tournament or card where athletes are compensated.
So the competing unattached thing was something I had not considered before until you brought it up on FRL to Mr. Fight, Bray. Like, is there a scenario where stars do compete unattached, even though they're, not redshirting, and they're like, I'm going to make $200 or whatever, wearing this insert brand here, this Rudis, this Nearfall singlet or whatever. And like college coaches, might have to accept that, there's going to be an imbalance to where, a college coach wants to win Midlands or Southern Scuffle or whatever, but at the same time, it's like you have to be kind of a player's coach and let them go do their thing and maybe make a little bit of money. Because it's a recruiting tool. You say, hey, come here, I'll let you go make a couple $100 at this tournament and compete unattached and do what you want.
Yeah, well, so it's interesting. I mean, definitely, student athletes will not ever be allowed to receive payment to compete. That they'll have to frame it slightly differently. But you're right. They could, they'll pay their own way out of their pocket, and then maybe make a couple $1,000 or whatever for a gear sponsorship, and then that would cover the travel and whatever. But I mean, I think the unintended consequence is going to be that not only is each coach going to have to decide how they're going to handle that, but that could end up serving as a recruiting tool in and of itself, right? Like these coaches might say, hey, if you go to X institution, they're not going to allow you to compete unattached. They're going to make sure that you are part of the team and whatever. And there's probably a lot of value in that. There's a lot of value in the team camaraderie and some coaches that maybe do things for a specific reason to help build the chemistry of a team or give accountability or guidance to student athletes might have to wrestle with weighing that versus weighing the decision to give student athletes money. The other thing is, as we talked about, there's not as much money probably as student athletes think, and there's not going to be money for as many people as student athletes think.
Right.
So you got Ben's talked about this a lot, but the fourth or fifth best guy on the team is probably not going to be making nearly as much as the number 1 or 2. And if you're a gear sponsor and you're thinking you want to throw a few $1,000s at sponsorship money for something like Midlands or Scuffle, you're probably going to put that towards 1 or 2 guys. Now, what does that mean? What does that do to your team dynamics when the best guy on your team travels separately, stays separately, has an autograph session, going on separately or at a outside the event because they're not attached? How does that feel? How does that?
It's like, oh, you're doing that and not scoring us team points.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not. I don't think these coaches are going to let that fly.
I think a lot of them will not let it fly, and I think there's going to be 1 or 2 that will, and then that's going to kind of open a really interesting scenario. Somebody's going to try. I mean, who don't you think somebody's going to try it?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I feel like there's enough coach-athlete trust. I don't think we're gonna have athletes going rogue and doing this. I think it's gonna be strategic with the coaches.
Yeah. If it's strategic between like coach and athlete, that's one thing, but there also has to be strategic communication between the coach and the rest of the team, so that the rest of the team is not worried about or not. I don't know, just not like wondering like, why does this guy get to do whatever he wants while I don't?
Yeah. That'll be that is something I hadn't considered either. That I'm excited to see how it materializes. I bet it's more of a rarity than something that happens. Liam Adelfinger, maybe a real name. Will Flo be making weekly NIL rankings? I doubt we'll do rankings, but I bet we'll do like check-ins. Like, hey, here's what Roman's doing. Actually, Roman is already at it. He's got a.
Did he put up a post this morning or
He's
something?
got. Let me see it. It got sent to me. I think it's Roman Bravo Young. I think he's got a raffle or something going. Yeah. Let me see if I can.
A raffle for what?
For his shoes, his RBY shoes.
Oh.
So it's already started. That's the first
Good
thing
for him.
I've seen. I don't know if it's the first thing. He's like selling tickets to a raffle, which is cool. Next question. What juniors internationally have the best shot to grow into world/Olympic champs? I like, I think Keegan and Jesse Mendez for me.
Yeah. I think so too. With Jesse, it is interesting though. Is it because I feel like Jesse probably 65 kilo guy at the senior level.
That's definitely the goal.
That's a tough weight internationally.
Yeah.
As we've seen. So it's kind of like a pick and choose type of thing, like who has the best odds, One thing I like about both those guys in terms of the weight class specifically is it doesn't seem like they are going to
have to kill themselves to make the weight. In
Yes.
fact, Jesse's going to need to get a little bit bigger to be a 65. And I mean, even internationally, that seems like the weight cut is a problem for a lot of guys, and it's something that can be really tough for a lot of guys' careers. I think he's going to fit 65 really well in a couple years. I know he thinks about 2024 Olympic team, and at that point, I think 65 is going to be an ideal weight for him. And I think Keegan O'Toole is similar. He's a guy that could have. I mean, he started the year at 57. Probably that was the plan, but now he's gone up, and he's gonna fit that weight for a long time. For whatever reason, like those are hard weights to hold. And a lot of the guys that are competing at 65 kilos specifically, they're 49 pounders, and so they're always fighting against the scale to get back down to 65 kilos.
Yeah.
Whereas I think Mendez is going to fit there really well.
Yeah, and Keegan is someone who physically can develop a lot more, just eyeball test wise, right? And Ben's, I mean, he's clearly strong enough for it to be a 165 collegiately, but it's a different level, obviously, internationally, senior level, etc. But I think he has it's the perfect like intersection of his own personal growth that he's going to have and him becoming a full size 74 kilo guy. So obviously we're a little Keegan biased here, but I think him and Men for the reason you pointed out, 65. I'll also say 74 is rarely a treat itself. It's also a really tough weight. But if I had to look, it said Olympic champ. There's only 6 of those weights. I don't think Richard Figueroa yet.
He's another one I would at least consider. I mean, because age level world success is often a pretty good indicator of senior level success. He's a medalist. He's done well. He's another guy that I could see having a really big impact by 2024.
Braxton Amos is really interesting.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. And not as dense a weight as 65 and 74 in the world.
But domestically, going to be tough to crack through 97, especially if Jaden and Kyle are going to be battling
for
it out.
the next 4 years. Yes, correct.
Yes, indeed.
And A1 Abdul Rashid Sajulayev is there internationally.
He is there. He is there. One more question, then we will go on this Thursday. Question for all Flow staff. Do y'all spend a majority of your work day watching wrestling? Or are y'all watching a lot of wrestling on your personal time? I'll let you guys answer this.
Both.
Yeah.
I guess. Yeah, I spend a lot of time watching wrestling. I mean, you have to. If you're writing an article about something, you got to study up, do your homework. Doing a show, you got to study up, do your homework, which is watching guys wrestle.
Covering an event, you're just, that's all you're doing. There's a lot of days where I don't get to watch wrestling a lot, but a lot of days where we do for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, back in the day, I used to watch way, way, way more. I don't get to watch as much as I would like, but I still watch a lot. And I think for the guys that are in like David's and JD's role, like you're watching a ton of it, and they watch it on their personal time too, because we love it. So we get to watch a lot of it in person, and it's great because you can catch up very quickly on anything you miss because of YouTube and Flow, and it's all.
One of my
around.
favorite things is when like Bray's watching a match and you just like look over their shoulder and you're like, oh, I remember this match. This match was awesome. Next thing you know, for the next 10 minutes, you're watching that match.
Yeah. Alrighty. Well, with that, we thank you guys so much for listening to 666 episodes. We got through it.
Wow.
No problem. We'll see
Happy
you-
July 1st, July 4th.
Oh, yeah. Happy birthday, USA. You're a grand old flag. Hope you guys have a great weekend. I'll be gone next week. No FRL for me. I'm on vacay. I'll still be around. I'll be watching. I'll be making sure JD and whoever else is on the show with him don't talk too much trash or try to take my job, organize any coups while I'm away. I know that, I got my eye on JD. I know. Keep your friends close and JD closer.
Keep your robed,
your
Patriots
robe
closer.
Yeah, exactly.
Keep your robe open. That's
Okay.
what I say.
And with that, we will go. Thank you so much. Bye.